Hey, I'm Mike. Welcome to this video. This video is a live coding session. It's not really live coding. I've already solved the problem. For question 2 of the 2016 Advent of Code Programming Contest. It's a really nice contest. Each day they open up another problem, and there's the entire problem set from last year if you want to check that out. You just have to go for last year. It's adventofcode.com/2015, and you can click on all of these. I only did up to 14 last year and I never finished 7. Hopefully I'll do a little bit better this year. But one of the things I really like about the competition is that it's a lot of the problems are accessible for beginning and intermediate programmers. And so what I decided to do this year is, over on my blog, I've decided to write up some of the Advent of Code problems. So here's a write-up I did of question 1, and today I thought we would do live coding of question 2. So let's take a look at it. Just before we even start, I've copied over the data. You can click on the end of the problem, it brings you to your data, you can cut and paste it into a file. But let's take a look at the problem. So take a second to read it, pause the video or go to the website. But the gist is, you have this keypad and you start here and you follow each line of instructions. So the first instruction, up, left, left, goes up, left, and now we're at the 1. But then the second left would take us off the board, so we ignore that and we're at 1, and 1 is the first key code. Then right, right, down, down, down. So right, right, down, down, and then down would take us below the 9. So 9 is our next, and then left, up, right, down, left. So left, up, right, down, left, and then 8. And then up, 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 down, up, up, next up is ignored, and then down, and then 5, and 1985 is the actual code. So that's how we do this. And I was thinking, well, how would I actually approach this, particularly if I were a beginner or an intermediate programmer? And I thought the most straightforward way was, well, what if I make a two-dimensional array for the board here, for this pad, and I keep track of where I am. I just have to basically loop through the input and follow the moves. And when I see up, I'll move up, down, I'll move down, etc. And when I get to the end of the line, that's added to the code. So that's the plan. We can get started. So let's take a look. Now I'm doing this in C++. And the reason I'm doing this in C++, ooh, I have an error in my init file. I don't know what that is, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. And the reason I'm doing it in C++ is because at Hunter College, where I teach now, that's the core language, and so I'm playing with that again after many years. But since I'm doing this with the idea that it's a beginner or intermediate programmer, potentially a beginner programmer, with maybe 1 course under their belt, 2 courses under their belt, there are certain features of the language that we're not going to use. So I don't know classes yet, let's pretend, and I don't know other fancy features. So let's get ready. I know I'm going to need strings. Make that even a little bit bigger. Okay. So the first thing I like doing is let's make sure I can do my input. So let's do and to be honest with you, when I wrote this, I didn't really know how to do this. I had totally forgotten how to do input in C++, so I just kind of looked this up online. Now we put std, and so we're good here. We're going to need a variable, so string line, and let's compile this. So G++ standard equals C++ 14, day 2. We have an error, string is wrong. Okay, and we're good. And this is actually a strategy I always use, so if you're a relative beginner, notice that my code doesn't really do anything yet. I do have a strategy, I do have a plan, but I already compiled it, had a little error, fixed it, and then moved on. I am always compiling and running my code. Every concept I will compile and run, because if you do that and you have an error, you know the error is in that concept, or as a result of you putting in that concept. Whereas if you put in 20 or 30 lines, your error can be anywhere. Who knows? It's going to be impossible. I've seen a lot of beginners put in a whole program and then they compile it and they get all these errors and they can't deal with it. And I'm always here, just compile, and it's just fast, and it gives you that feedback, and you've got something. And then the next strategy I always like using is I always like getting my input and printing it out really early on, because then I know I have a working program, and without your data you can't do anything. So we got that. So now let's go to the next thing. I need my keypad. So let's make the keypad, and I could do it like this. So we'll make our board. We could make it like this, a two-dimensional array of characters. So we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. But I think it's easier to make just strings. And so instead, this will be a string board. I just find it easier because you still can kind of use it like a two-dimensional array, but it's easier to modify and create. So what we're going to do here is we're going to test this again. What I should really do is I should really print out the board, but I'm not going to at this point. And now I have to keep track of my row and my column. So, got an error there. So again, the error's got to be here. Great. So now I'm ready to actually do some work. So what I want to do is I want to basically go through each line and deal with each character. So here, what I can do is for, well, why don't we do it this way? Let's make a car ch. And let's make an int I equals 0, while I is less to line length, I plus plus. And now let's do cout, std, cout, line sub I, and let's do std end out. Okay, so now I'm reading all of those, and let's just put that into variable ch just to make it a little bit less. So again, notice a concept, I compiled it, I tested it, I know that it works, and now I can now do my operation. So what I'm going to do, the way I decided to do this is well, let's put all our declarations up here. dr for delta row and delta column. So why don't we say delta row equals 0, delta column equals 0, and now we just have to check if we have a U, we're going to go up. If we have a D, we're going to go down, left and right. So it's a bunch of if statements, or you can use a switch. So switch on ch. And we can have the case for U. And that'll be dr equals -1, break. Case for D. dr equals 1, break. Case for L. And that's going to be dc equals -1, break. And then we'll have case, hit the wrong key, case for right, and we will have, fix that, dc equals 1, break, and I think I probably have a mistake somewhere in here, let's see, hit some wrong keys, so break, break, left and right, that ends the switch statement, that ends the for statement, that ends the while statement. I think we're okay here, let's compile it. Great. So now what we can do is we, normally I would actually print out my row and column each time in here, but instead, I think I've given you the idea of how I like to code, but since we're already up to 10 minutes, I'm going to skip that step because I have written this before, but now I want to do my move. So I can do a check basically. Well, the problem with this is now I'm starting to think, I have to do a lot of checking. If I try to move in the left direction, but I'm at 1, I'm going to be at 0, or I'm at 0, I'm going to be at -1, that's going to be off the array. And if it's at 3, I'm going to have to be off the array. This is going to be kind of messy. This is a lot of checking, because I have to check, I have to check for the row being less than 0 or greater than 2, and the column being less than 0 and greater than 2. There's got to be something, I don't want to have to all those if conditions. So what I like doing is I'm thinking about, rather than having a lot of if conditions, maybe I can change my data. So I look at this and say, well, I know, what I can do is I can basically say 1, 2, 3, padding, padding. I can add spaces around all of my entries. And now if I'm here and I try to move down to here, or I try to move over to here or whatever, I'm going to hit a space. I'm going to hit an illegal location. And it doesn't matter if I go up, down, left, right. All I have to basically say is if board R plus dr C plus dc doesn't equal a space. If it equals a space, I don't want to move. I want to stay where I am. But if it doesn't equal a space, I can just say R equals R plus dr and C equals C plus dc. I can update my location, and that's pretty much it. Except the last part of this is when I get to the end of the row. So let's do a cout, actually an std cout, board row column end L, and let's compile this, let's run this, 61529, and in fact that is the correct answer. So that works, and we can make this a little bit slicker by saying something like std string code equals that. And then we can come down here and basically be like, instead of this output, we can say code equals code plus board row column. And at the end of this, we can cout, or again, std cout, the code is the code. And we have our answer 61529, which was correct. So this is great. So we've got our solution. So now we're up to part 2, and that's another thing I like about advent of code is you have part 1 and then you have part 2. And if you look at part 2, it's like, oh no, they've changed it. So now the board has a different configuration. Now, if I did this the way that, if I did this with just checking hard coding for -1s and 2s for the board that way, this would have been a real pain. But the beauty here is since, and actually it was a slight error with this problem. I really should have started over here. I should have updated this to 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. So my starting location should have been 2, 2. And we still get the same answer. But now we can change the board. So now the board is going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is going to be the middle row. So that's going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 with spaces on either side. And then it's going to be A, B, C. And then this one is going to be D. That's going to be a blank there. This guy is going to be 2, 3, 4. This guy is going to be just a 1. And so we've just changed because we're having this border around it, we've changed the data structure to handle our edge cases. We don't have to change any of our code. All we have to do to get the answer to part 2 is part 2 says we still start at the 5, but now the 5 is going to be at 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. So row 3, column 1. And so now if we run it, we have segmentation fault. Oh, row 32. We don't really want row 32. Where are we? Where are we? Row 3. Okay. And our answer is C2C28, which indeed is the right answer. And notice again, we're only changing one thing at a time, so it's really fast to find the answer to that. So that's my solution to Advent of Code, day number 2. I really like this idea of changing the data by modifying it in some way to get rid of your edge cases, your special cases. We solved it by putting a border of spaces around, and that meant that we could use the exact same solution for part 2 as part 1. We didn't have to do any special coding. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it. If you did, leave a comment on the video, leave a comment on the blog, and that's it. So enjoy.